Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft Log live stream. Rob Staten here. I know that Robbie Williams is going to be joining us very, very shortly as well. He's just got a couple of technical issues that he's dealing with, but he will be with us soon. So great win for the Seahawks. You know, commanding win. Absolutely hammered the Saints there. Outcoached the Saints completely. Special teams obviously having a big impact. The game got out of control very, very quickly, which meant that it took all of the pressure off the Seahawks. And that was one of those rare games where you could kind of just sit there and relax and enjoy it. And you could have Red Zone on in the background and watch some of these other games. I'm sure, like many of you, you have got half an eye, as I have, on what's happening with the Cardinals. And they are going to have to punt the ball back to the 49ers with a minute 54 to go. So Mac Jones, who had played well in that game for the Niners, but there's then thrown an interception and I think had another bad play as well. I can't remember. I've had half an eye on it. He's going to have a chance to win this game for the 49ers. But we'll come on to all of that and what it means, the NFC West. What I would say is I personally think it is good news for the Seahawks that they had a game like this today against the Saints, where it was not a taxing game, physically not a draining game. They were able to rest a lot of their starters, and the Cardinals are in a game like this where they are battling and scrapping and scratching. And even if they go on to win this game, they've been in a battle on the road against a division opponent with a quick turnaround, and the Seahawks effectively had that today. So I think that might be beneficial to the Seahawks. I think James Conner went off as well with an injury at some point. So again, we will kind of get on to all of that. Something we will talk about down the line while we're waiting for the other guys, at least for Robbie. I don't know if Adam's going to join us or not for this one. But to come back to the Seahawks, I think what we saw from that performance today was how good the coaching staff is. And I'm in particular about the defense. To lose Julian Love, Devin Witherspoon, I'm hesitant to say they've lost Nick Emenwari because we've not really seen him play for Seattle. He was injured very early in the Niners game. So I'm not going to call him a loss right now. He's not an experienced player. He'd be sort of learning the ropes in these first few weeks. But to lose two key starters and to have guys out there just flying around the field, making loads of plays, not looking out of place at all. What has happened with Josh Jobe is pretty incredible. He looks sensational out there. Looks like one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL currently. They've got Kennard, who I had an undrafted free agent grade on and has not played well for the Rams. And yet he comes over to Seattle and he kind of has this thing where he drops an interception, an easy interception, but then makes up for it later on with a catch, a good interception. So I think, you have to praise what they've been doing in the secondary there. I'm sorry, I'm just so distracted by what is happening in this Arizona game. Mac Jones throwing a pass over the middle, almost intercepted, but there is a flag against the Cardinals. So the Niners they're moving down the field. They are getting into position where they could potentially kick a field goal. Remember, the Niners changed their field goal kicker recently and cut Jake Moody because he had a horrible day in Seattle, which was kind of the final straw. So they have a new kicker. He has made his kicks today. I wonder if people want to let us know who they want to win this game. Do they want the Niners to win or the Cardinals, given the Cardinals are Seattle's next opponent? I'm wanting the Cardinals to win. I just think that any defeat for the Niners, given that they've already beaten Seattle in week one, I think if you can, put a loss on their record, I think that's fine. And then you get a chance to try and beat the Cardinals on Thursday. So I think that's the way that I would go. But the way that the Niners have already moved up to midfield makes me think they are going to get into field goal position here. Someone's going to have to make a play for the Niners. Tackled short of the sticks there, second down. It's going to be second and short for the Niners with 55 seconds to go based on the screen that I'm looking at. So you may well be ahead. So we're just kind of doing a live watch along of these final few seconds here. First down into field goal range now, the 49ers. Now, there's no given that they're going to make the field goal from that range just because they are in the kicker's range. However, they have moved the ball well enough. And this is the problem, I think, for the Cardinals, is that they do have good players. They undoubtedly do. And they are very competitive and they can give anybody a game, as they've shown here today. But do they have those defensive difference makers? Is somebody going to step up and make a huge play here for the Cardinals? And I'm not sure that is the case. So we will see. The Niners are going to need to kick the field goal here to win. I do think the Niners have been unlucky because the Cardinals got a safety, which was a safety, but Kyler Murray should have been flagged in his. He basically threw a pass from in his own end zone that should have been intentional grounding, and that should have been a safety as well. So they should have had a safety. The Cardinals did get one. It really probably should be 15-15 in this game, but here we go then. Matt Jones, can someone make a play? No, they can't. Christian McCaffrey is running through. It's going to be a very, very easy field goal here. So it looks as if the Niners are going to hang on and win by a point. They are winning the close games. You have to take your hat off to them. You know, I imagine they're just going to kick this very easily now. So unless there's a blocked field goal, and then we have seen some of those today, most notably in the Rams game with the Eagles, but looks as if the Niners are going to come away with it. And I think you have to give Kyle Shanahan some credit because they're winning without the quarterback. Nick Bosa went off injured in this game. George Kittle's already out. He's on injured reserve. So they've lost a lineman this week. So they're really banged up, really injured, and yet still winning games of football by the looks of things, assuming that they can kick this kick here with 4 seconds to go to win 16-15. So I think you have to give the Niners some credit. I underestimated them and thought they were a bit of a spent force going into the season. Clearly, that's not the case. Clearly, they can still be competitive. I am not sure that they can do it again and go to a Super Bowl, another one in the NFC, but we'll see. We'll see. It's a wide open NFC. I think we saw that today with the Rams and the Eagles, how that is. You know, both teams have good moments. Both teams have flaws. The Packers showed that they have flaws today when they threw away that game against Cleveland. So, not beyond the realms of possibility that they could go on a run here, but we'll see. Let's just see how this kick goes then. Are the Cardinals going to ice the kicker? They are not. The kick is good. The 49ers will move to 3-0. And the Cardinals will drop to 2-1. But that is, I kind of feel like the Cardinals chucked that away at the end as Robbie Williams joins us. Robbie, how are you?
Hello. Good. How are you?
Well, better about 10 seconds ago before the Niners won. I mean, look, it doesn't really matter. You know, there was, if the Niners were playing an AFC team, obviously we would have really, really wanted to lose. I don't think it's the end of the world that they've beaten the Cardinals, because they're in our division as well. But I just think that, you know, good teams grind out results, Robbie. We were in Seattle to see the Niners do exactly that against the Seahawks, and now they've done it against the Cardinals as well. They kind of did it against the Saints last week, and they're doing it without the QB, without Nick Bosa, without George Kittle. And you just think, you've got to say fair play. You know, that is a season could have spiraled for the Niners, and it hasn't. They've started very, very well. But that's enough about them, because you're here now, so we can talk about the Seahawks instead. People are not going to have us on in the background while the Mariners are playing if we talk about the Niners being really good. So, so what did you make of that then, Robbie? Because obviously it's a big win. It's the kind of win I was really hoping for today. You know, kind of just sit there and enjoy it and not stress at all about that. And it feels like we were due a home win like that.
Yeah, definitely needed this one. It felt like all the things just played in our favor. You know, and it was good to get a home win. And I had some friends at the game that were texting me that were like, it's so loud. This is what we've been missing. Even like the announcers were saying it. And so Rob, the only thing that was kind of a bummer is I was like, man, I wish we would have flown out for this game instead. And maybe a little more fun, but listen, take a win. I think all around, really excited about it. And I'm just going to comment on this so we can get it out of the way. Yes, I have fixed my office. Now there's nothing, no more green screen. I've seen a bunch of people talking about it. So I texted Rob and Adam during the week and said, I did it. I cleaned my office. So,
well, there we go. And I thought it was there was a couple of times, Robbie, when I thought, what would have our mood been like if we're in that empty hotel room today? And also when they kept showing pictures of Seattle looking amazing today, like the weather's fantastic, and you're thinking, it wasn't bad when we were out there, but it still looked amazing today. So I should say this because I forgot to do it. I should say this at the start. Okay, there are 3 things I need you to do. Right, first of all, there is something new that YouTube is doing, and if you look underneath the video and you kind of scroll across, you will find something that says, it just says hype. It's like a hype button. I need everybody who is watching this on YouTube to go and press click the hype button, because it will boost the video. Basically what it's meant to do is boost channels that have a following between X and Y, and it will sort of promote them and get more eyes on it. So if you could all go and press the hype button, that would be much appreciated. And while you're there, if you could click like and click subscribe as well, that would be great. If you want to send a super chat in, please do. We're going to talk about the Seahawks game. We are going to talk about bigger picture stuff with the Seahawks, and I will probably finish with a couple of thoughts on the draft, because I've been spending all day watching college football before the NFL started. So, Robbie, let's run through it. Special teams was fantastic today. I was a little bit disappointed that Michael Dixon ruined what was I thought like an exceptional day with a flat punt, which he kind of just looked like he couldn't be arsed with, and put his foot through it, and it prevented the Seahawks from getting their kick coverage set up, which led to a run. But apart from that, the returns, the blocks, Myers kicking it from way out, everything was there for a great special teams performance, Robbie. And it feels like years since you could say the Seahawks had a great special teams unit. Maybe it's a little bit premature to say they have a great special teams unit based on one game against the lowly Saints. But that was really good to see, wasn't it? And it was the catalyst for the blowout in the end.
Yeah, and I think, what I was thinking about, because they actually showed Jay Harbaugh on TV, and I remember thinking, like, this is a big year for him, right? Big year to prove that he's got something to go forward with his team, and I think he's doing a good job, and it was nice to see that they're doing all the things that they need to. You're right, the last kind of punt was kind of frustrating, but I mean, I'll take that if it's only the second punt of the game and we put up 44 on the board. I'm not going to complain too much about it, but yeah, phenomenal side of the ball. I think they did really well.
And then obviously Torrey Horton with a big kick return, but also a touchdown catch as well, Robbie. That's back-to-back weeks with the touchdown catch for Torrey Horton. Player, really liked on the blog, had him in a firm day 2 player prospect. Seahawks get him in round 5. There was a lot of buzz during training camp about how good he could be, and I think the fact that I think there's a lot more to come from him. I still think there's a like another level that he's going to get to in the future, but the fact that he's already out there, Robbie, making plays, especially touchdown catches, runs, returns, whatever, it speaks to a player who can be really something here. And the Seahawks have needed to find some of these guys. For too long, they've not really had enough of their sort of day 3 picks turning into anything. And yet with this guy, obviously Reed Woolen was, I think, he's probably the last one who was really developed into a firm starter. They needed to hit on some of those later picks, and with Horton, the round 5 pick, that looks like an absolute steal, Robbie.
You know what? In my mind, what it's doing is making the DK trade look even better, because DK was kind of supposed to be that guy, and Torrey Horton's turning into it. I'm not saying he's DK level by any means; he doesn't have the speed or whatever, but he's being that reliable receiver that could be a good complement to JSN. And even Cooper Kupp had a couple catches today, and he looked decent. And like, I'm kind of excited to see what he can do going forward. I mean, the punt return was phenomenal. He's clearly faster than he looks on tape or whatever, because he was super fast on that. And I just think we definitely got a steal on that. And you're right, we needed to hit on some of these later round picks, and he's a guy that we talked about during the offseason when we got him, that this could be a good steal. And it's nice to hit on one of those as well, to say it and then actually see it coming to life. And I really think he's going to be someone that is going to be a big player for us going forward. And I love that he's like, you see the confidence growing, like as he's continuing to play, he's starting to feel more confident, maybe in the offense or in Sam Darnold or whatever it might be. And the team is going to rely on him more going forward. And I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, completely agree. And it just looks the part. He really does look the part. I'm the same as you. I was watching the red zone. I wasn't watching the Steelers against the Patriots because, frankly, that was a terrible game of football. But I was kind of keeping half an eye on it on red zone. And even though DK Metcalf got another touchdown today, there was no part of me, Robbie, that was thinking, I wish he was still in Seattle. Like there were no real big plays from him. He's now being paid at a level where you kind of have to have something from every week. You know, he has to be like a near enough 100 yards every week and a touchdown most weeks as well. He's in that stratosphere. I'm probably going to have a look actually and sort of see where he is on average salary, because you can't just be, well, he's got your red zone touchdown. Watching him today reminded me a little bit of what Jimmy Graham became in Seattle, which was great. You know, he can get you touchdowns and he can make plays, but you know, you've spent a lot to bring him here. Does he not need to be more than that? And I kind of get that feeling. I'm looking at the average now. So he is the 4th highest paid receiver in the NFL. And you need him to play at the level of, you know, well, you know, when you're playing the Vikings, that Justin Jefferson's going to be a pain in the backside. It's going to be a pain in the arse to cover. And I just don't feel like you feel that way about DK Metcalf. So to move him on, get Elijah Arroyo, who I'm hoping there's more to come from, you know, in the playbook with him in the future. This game, I don't think was conducive with spreading it around because the game was over very, very quickly. But to be able to get him and save all of that salary that you would have had to pay DK Metcalf and then get someone like Torrey Horton instead. Plus, by the way, Jackson Smith and Jigba, it's not going to be a major talking point because the special teams and other things will dominate the headlines, Robbie. But that's another very solid game from him. You know, he is showing he's not the flashiest player. He's not going to make one of those Odell Beckham type catches or the Justin Jefferson against the Bills, whenever that was a few years ago. I remember watching that when I was in a bar in Munich, sat next to a female Cowboys fan watching that spectacular game. She was all right, actually, as well. She was a good laugh. Kind of middle-aged Dallas fan was just randomly had come over for the game and was sat in the bar with us watching that. You know, he doesn't do those kind of things. He doesn't make those kind of plays. But I just feel as if, you know, Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to be a very, very good player for a very long time and was well worth the 20th overall pick.
I agree. And I remember Jeff getting really excited about when we drafted him. He was like hyped. And I remember I was excited, but I was like a little hesitant just by some fact that he'd been out the previous year, you know, and injured in college. And so to see what he can actually come in and do is it's exciting. And I think he's going to be, as you said, injuries aside, if nothing goes wrong there, but like, man, he is such a playmaker, and he seems to run all the right routes. He has a good feel, like that. Even that Sam Darnold where he like rolled out of the pocket and then Jason like saw it and like took off now, the good scramble drill. He knew exactly where to go as soon as he saw Sam started to run with it. So yeah, I just think overall, and last year, honestly, his football IQ is incredible. You remember last year when he was running a route and Gino took off running and he went like this to make sure that the corner was covering him, thinking that he was going to get the ball, that the ball was coming, and the corner kept with him as Gino was able to run. I mean, just phenomenal IQ there. And I'm really excited to kind of see what he can do. So I'm watching the Mariners baseball games right in front of me. So
what's the score? What's the score on the Mariners game?
It's nothing. Bases loaded though. So
for the Mariners or for the Astros?
Yeah, Mariners base loaded.
Well, I wear my Mariners hat in particular because I knew that I'm hoping that might convince a few people to stay with us while the Mariners are playing.
I'll do the same.
There you go. There you go. Look at that little swap for Robbie. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, I must admit, ever since we went to the Mariners game, I have kept a very close eye on their progress. To the point I was actually found a way to watch the game yesterday. And that was quite an exciting finish. I was watching that alongside the college football. So hopefully they can get the sweep today. And hopefully you'll stay with us while we talk a bit of Seahawks football, because you can have them both on at the same time, like Robbie's doing. So I wanted to talk about the defensive backs as well. I was talking about that a little bit before you joined us, Robbie. I think to lose Witherspoon and Love in particular, obviously Amendola is not out there as well, but for Derian Kendrick, who had, for the second week in a row, has dropped an absolute gimme interception, but then made up for it later on in the game and got an interception later on. You know, he's playing well. Josh Jobe, I think, looks is playing as well as any cornerback in the NFL. This is not a great era of NFL cornerback play. There are not 6 or 7 top cornerbacks in the NFL at the moment. There's some big names who, people like Sauce Gardner have got big name reputations and contracts now, but don't actually play that well when you watch them. Where I think that to see Job playing the way he is, I don't know whether to say that that's down to Carl Scott, who's the defensive backs coach or the secondary coach, whether it's down to Mike McDonald or Adam Durdy, or if it's a combined effort. I don't know where you sort of divvy out the credit for that, Robbie, but whoever it is, and whoever gets the section of the pie chart who is responsible for this, they're doing a heck of a job. They really are. To lose two key players in your secondary and one that you obviously intended because you traded up for him to have a big role in this defense, and to still play at that level with players that, I'm sorry, but I don't want to keep bringing Pete Carroll up. I think if he'd have had to deal with those kind of injuries in the secondary, it could have been an absolute disaster zone. I believe something's happened in the Mariners game. Robbie, is that the case? Something happened there?
Grand slam. Mariners up 5-0.
A grand slam. There you go.
Yeah.
See, this is all because of those that hydro race, Robbie.
It's the hydro race.
But because let's be fair, the Mariners have won every game but one since that moment. And so again, if you missed it last week, what happened was Robbie and I were at the Mariners game. We were talking about how much of a jinx I was, and then the hydro race. I said, "Come on, let's have a bash at this." I said, "Yellow thing was going to win." Well, it's like a boat thing. Is
the hydro boat? Yeah,
hydro boat. Yeah. So that I said yellow. It did win, and I said, "That's it. This is the turning point of the luck." So from now on, everything's going to work out just fine. And it did. The Mariners won. They ended up winning that game. They've won all but one game since. The Seahawks have won both of their games since, Robbie. So everything's working out nice. Everything's perfect. It's down to that moment. And yes, I do think I should have a championship ring when the Mariners they win the World Series. Yes,
that's it. Yeah,
I'll happily return to Seattle for my ring. Yeah,
yeah. There you go. Let's see, defensive backs. Yeah, Josh Jobe was playing phenomenal. I mean, and I love how much love he was getting on the TV. Like, even the announcers knew it. Like, they'd been doing their homework and talking about how great he's been playing, even when he got picked up during the preseason and everything. They were saying how phenomenal he looked then. And so a lot of love for him. And I mean, if you look at his stats today, I think he had like 9 solo tackles, 11 total, and he had a couple pass deflections or something like that. I mean, he just seemed like he was all over the place. And I mean, just, you gotta love what he's doing. I'm really excited to see what he can bring to the table for the team. Can't get enough good corners, so we'll take it.
And I think Kobe Bryant continues to play very well, and I know that's been reported. Brady Henderson's been all over this as usual, but they tried to sign him to an extension during the summer, and that didn't happen. They did Abe Lucas instead. I'd love to see that get done. I don't know what his position is. Maybe he feels as if he continues to play very, very well, that he may well get a mega contract in the off season. But safeties don't tend to get paid mega contracts unless you are a big name. And with respect to him, he's not a massive name in the NFL, is he? He's well known in Seattle and probably in Cincinnati, where obviously he played college football for a long period of time. But this is a player who just continues to grow, continues to look good. And Robbie, I'd quite like to see him sign to a new deal if they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all for it. He's playing really well, and I'm glad they found a position for him, because there for a while it looked like he might not be fit for the team. So good to have him.
And then I just keep seeing the Mariners. Has something else happened now, Robbie? Something else?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah. Kyle Rowling just homered to right. Scored another. We're up 7-0.
Awesome. Right. Well, that is perfect start, isn't it? I mean, hopefully they won't let the Astros back into it like they did yesterday. But great start. Somebody joked in the comments that will the Mariners outscore the Seahawks today? There's a ways to go yet, but there you go. Wow, 58 home. Is that 58 home runs? Was it a Cal Riley home run? Oh wow. What a season he's having. Right, back to the Seahawks. So I'm sure that the comments will keep us up to date. If you've got any super chats, send them in. I think the coaching overall today, Robbie, that was the one thing that was another glaring difference between the two teams for me was that it's a difficult one for Kellen Moore. It's a tough one for him, but he looked overmatched. I think that the three phases of the game from a Seahawks perspective, they were well on top of that. And to see Seattle in that position for once, where you just think there's a major difference in talent of coaching here. Look, Kellen Moore's has done a very good job with the Eagles and deserved all the credit that he got and deserved the opportunity to be a head coach. I just don't think, from a special teams point of view, defensive point of view, whether he's a head coach or just a decent coordinator, I don't know. I thought there was a major difference there. And again, I'm sorry, I keep going back to the former head coach, but I was watching Red Zone earlier, and the Raiders gave up 180 yards of rushing in the first half today, Robbie. They were going at one point, they were giving up 10 yards a carry. I think by half time, it was something like 7.4, 7.8, something like that. And it near enough ended in that range. And the special teams was awful as well for the Raiders. So I just think seeing that today, and again, I know it's one game. I don't think the Seahawks outcoached anybody in week one when we were in Seattle. But today they did. And I think last week they obviously did with the special teams touchdown. So I just think it's encouraging. And I think we're starting to see a bit of momentum being built now. We're starting to see, a team that is coming together, that the season has kicked off now. It's a big game on Thursday, obviously, Robbie. We'll be talking in a very different way if they lose that game. But if they can go to Arizona and win, you'll feel like, okay, week one was week one. Here we go. They can now move forward and have the kind of season we were all hoping they were going to have.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, I think I said it last game, but it feels like they're starting to find their identity a little bit. The defense definitely, the offense, I still think they have some things that they can work on. But overall, I definitely think they're starting to find their groove and find their things. I'd love to see the tight ends get a little more involved. But yeah, I think today really benefited us by like having the score be what it was, that we didn't have to play all four quarters, that it kind of felt out of reach after halftime. You could see the game slow way down. It kind of almost got boring to the point where, like, you knew they were just going to kind of run a little bit, and didn't seem like they were going to, call a bunch of crazy plays or anything. They were going to call safe plays, kind of get out of the game. They brought their starters off and really saved them for Thursday. So I think that's going to be, it's a quick turnaround time. So I think that's going to be really, really benefit the team. So I think all things, considering, I think this was exactly what we needed for today. And come Thursday, if we keep rolling, then yeah, we'll have some good things to talk about.
And just a final one from really the standout. Look, there were so many plays you could mention today. The block, the Chaz Surratt block was quite fun against the kicker early on. Although he did kind of have an interesting moment with the block kick where he was desperately trying to pick it up off the turf to walk it in for a touchdown, and he couldn't. He couldn't bend down far enough to get the ball cleanly, and it didn't matter in the end. But it was quite amusing that. But tremendous block. Sam Darnold was, I thought, really good again. Just looked really confident, composed, assured. Sam Darnold is not a Josh Allen. He is not a Lamar Jackson. He is not going to, at any point this season, play and just think everyone else is playing crap, but don't worry, the quarterback's on it, so he's going to win. Like, it's not going to be that way. The Seahawks are going to have to play three phases football, or at least complement the offense and the defense. They're going to have to do all of those things. But I just thought it was really great today, Robbie, to see a quarterback who was it was like ice in his veins all the way through. And he's been that way for the three games. When he's made a mistake, he's bounced back. He's had amnesia. There's no sort of worries there. He seems to be settling down nicely. He's using his weapons very, very well. They seem to have really nailed down this tush push, which I always say on the Seahawks Collective when they bring it up. It sounds ridiculous when a British accent says that phrase, but they seem to have nailed that down, and I don't think that can be underestimated. How many times did that 3rd and 1 and it'd be an adventure last season? Like, they didn't have a clue what to do, whereas now they can just get AJ Barner under center and push it forwards a yard or half a yard. So I think there were so many good things, and I have to say, it was just such a pleasure to sit on what we call a sofa, and I think you call a couch, and just not care at all about anything other than, I wonder what's going to happen next. Like, this is really fun. Like, didn't have any kind of sort of hand rigging, no kind of pacing, no need to sort of think about what if this happens or what if that happens or they might blow this or whatever. It was just fun. It's the kind of game that you could easily, waste 10 minutes watching the highlights for tomorrow or later today. So well done to the Seahawks, and fantastic. We've had one super chat. Keep those coming in. Off topic, but thoughts on Liverpool going far. Running Lamp, honestly, I don't think anybody cares. But I appreciate the question. I think Liverpool done very well, but the rest of the Premier League's not really up to their standard, I'm afraid. Bit predictable. If anybody has any Seahawks super chats, that would be great. This one here from Take 610 says, "Now, if only the 49ers hadn't squeaked out a win." Well, let's talk about the NFC West, because the Seahawks are 2-1, the Cards are 2-1, the Rams are 2-1, and the Niners are 3-0. Let's start with the Rams. Did you see any of that game, Robbie?
I saw most of it. I thought they were going to win. They kind of blew it. I mean, they were up 26-7 going in the third quarter. I thought for sure they were going to win. And then they had a chance at the end. I mean, kind of two crazy blocked kicks to end the game.
Jordan Davis blocking that last kick. I mean, he was the player of the game by an absolute mile. And then, as if he needed to do anything else, he blocks the kick at the end and then decides, well, I'll just casually run this back, 60 yards without
fast for a big fella, though.
He just set off running. He just but there's the athleticism to block that kick, to make the move to block the kick, then not like stumble at all, just go and collect the football and then just set off running and just outrun everybody, and then just sort of get to the end zone. And when he got to him, like he looked like he hadn't run a yard. Like he wasn't even out of breath. Like he was just like, yep, I've just done that. So, I mean, that was incredible. And the Rams, for 3 quarters of that game, Robbie, were easily the better team. Like you kind of watching it thinking, wow, the Rams are really good. And they'll be kicking themselves. Yeah. Absolutely kicking themselves that they threw that one away, because they absolutely pissed that away, that game. Yeah. And that's a big one for them. It was a big one that Seattle blew in the first week. It's an NFC West opponent. You can't afford to drop the NFC games when you are in a tight division. And that's what the Rams did today. And that was a much more winnable game for them than week 1 was for Seattle.
Yeah. What I'll say about the Rams is they to me, I know the Niners are 3-0, but the Rams look like the team to beat. I mean, truly, they're just so well coached. You know what I mean? They're just so well coached. Like, that just doesn't matter who they have playing. They just feels like they've got a chance no matter what. And I mean, they blew that one today. They're gonna look back and kick themselves for that. But yeah.
Well, the Seahawks would have beaten the Niners with Mac Jones, I think. Brock Purdy may have thrown 2 interceptions in week 1, but he also made some really good plays and kept the ball moving down the field, and obviously had the touchdown at the end, which should have been broken up or intercepted. But I think the Seahawks would have beaten Mac Jones. And it's a little bit frustrating that they couldn't just find a way once they were in the red zone to sneak away with that one and be 3-0 themselves right now. But I think the fact that the division is all kind of like close together, I don't know who the Niners have got next. I should really have a look. But the fact that everyone is close together. So the Niners play the Jaguars next week and then the Rams. So it's not easy for the Niners. I think that's on the road. Yes. Niners on the road to the Jaguars. So they've got to go to Florida next week. And the Jaguars are a strange team. They are a strange team.
No, so it's at home.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they have the Jaguars at home, and then they travel to travel to LA for the Rams.
So okay, so they play the Jaguars in Santa Clara. Is what you're saying? Yes, you're correct. Sorry, yes, my mistake. So they're hosting the Jaguars again. Jaguars are a weird team, and if all of their injured players are out, I mean, the Jaguars could beat the Niners, but the Niners could beat the Jaguars. So we'll see. And then the Cardinals, I just feel as if, Robbie, we're watching the same Cardinals team that we've watched for the last 2 years. I really don't. Their best players on offense are still the quarterback and Trey McBride. I know they've got Marvin Harrison and they've made some other picks and some free agent signings, but it's still those two that are the key. And James Conner was there already anyway. And then on defense, they've brought
Connor
guys
went
in.
out today.
Well, exactly, yes. So he's injured, but they're sort of their best players. And then on defense, they brought in guys like Josh Sweat, but they're not really difference makers for me. The decent players, obviously, Calais Campbell's are still somehow a force, even though he's 95 years old. But Buda Baker's still there, and he will always be. He will always play at a certain level, and will always play the Seahawks tough. But I just can't. For me, they just seem like the team that they're just this. I don't see how they take a step forward, Robbie. I don't know if it's a different quarterback. I don't think Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray still makes plays that you think, yeah, that's really good from Kyler Murray. But then Kyler Murray does stuff that you think, that's really bad from Kyler Murray. And they're the difficult players to move on from, because you can easily get worse than him. But is he ever going to take you to where you want to get to? Kind of like the Geno Smith dilemma, and may well prove to be the Sam Darnold dilemma in Seattle. But I don't really know what to think about them. So when I look at this division, I still think it's there for Seattle to have a strong season. I don't think you can take too much away from these last 2 weeks, because the Steelers are clearly not as good as perhaps people would have thought during the off season, and the Saints are obviously quite a bad team. But if you can go to Arizona on Thursday, short week, and win well, Robbie, that will get people excited, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's a win against an NFC West opponent. And that's something that I think we would be missing. But it's a Thursday night game. We usually play pretty good on Thursday nights. Arizona, they're always going to play us tough regardless. I have a feeling it's going to be a close, low-score game, kind of like the San Francisco game, 16-13, that kind of game. Like, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a game that, it's not going to be a big blowout, I don't think. But this is one that I think you definitely have to have. I don't think this is one that you want to let slip away and, have the Cardinals be what 2-2, or they'd be 3-1 and you'd be 2-2, and that's not what you really want to do. So I think at this point, this is not a game you want to just kind of gloss over. It's an NFC West opponent. You got to have this. You blew the first week. It's time to really get after them. And I would actually like it to be a dominating win, to kind of put a stamp on it and say, we're ready to make that next move. I don't think it'll be. I think it's more going to be like that close game, but they always play as tough, and they're not one to overlook for any reason.
I want to see what did they do against the. I'm going to look at what did they do last year, because I've just got, my memory might be terrible, but I've just got a feeling that last season it felt okay. So last season the Seahawks won 30-18 in Arizona, and they won 16-6 in Seattle. So they were quite comprehensive wins. I was going to say I felt as if the Seahawks kind of had their number last year. I'm hoping it's going to be the same again. I think if it could be the same again, Robbie, then that's the kind of thing we're talking about here, isn't it? Like a comprehensive, solid win. And I think they've got a chance to do it. They've got to stay out of their own way, obviously. And if Connor's not going to play, then... And I just... Kyler Murray is one of those players, again, who can make magic happen. But I also think he's perhaps the worst kind of quarterback to be playing against the Mike McDonald defense, because he can confuse you and he can put you in difficult situations and you're not sure what you're seeing. And sometimes that can be the issue with Murray. It's when he sort of gets out of the pocket and moves around and can improvise and make things happen that he becomes a real problem. And we saw a bit of that today as well, when Spencer Rattler was getting out of the pocket. And I wanted to ask you about this, because what do you feel about Seattle's pass rush? Because it feels to me as if the Seahawks pass rush are impacting games, they're disrupting quarterbacks, but they're not getting any sacks, and they don't really look like they're getting. Like Derek Carr again today was doing a very good job pushing the tackle backwards in towards the quarterback, which is what he's got to do. But we're not seeing those swim moves and or just bend the arc, straighten from Nwosu or Lawrence or even Boya Mafe was quiet against it. And again, it's not a game, Robbie, where they're necessarily going to have a massive impact given what was happening with the score. But do the Seahawks have enough juice there? Are they still, have they got enough? Is it just in time that the sacks will come?
They'll
or
probably
is
come
it?
in bunches, is my guess. Yeah, I mean, I think we've got the tools there. It's hard when you're only rushing 4, right? And they're leaving 5 back to block. And I saw someone say it earlier, but PD Way said, Rattler was pretty good at escaping pressure today and kind of getting around it. And, there was a couple, I don't know, the one where Leonard Williams got the flag for like lifting Rattler's leg and putting him on the ground. I thought that was kind of dumb. But like, I think, they're getting home and they're getting to the quarterback. They're putting them under pressure. It's making it tough for the quarterback. I mean, they may pick up yards, but they're not scoring a lot of touchdowns. So I think that's really what's important.
Looking at the schedule, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, because after the Cardinals, they've then got it's like a mini bye before hosting the Buccaneers. Now, the Buccaneers again today, at one point, we're looking like, hey, this might be the team to beat. Like they look like a serious NFC threat. And then the next minute, I looked at the TV, Robbie, and they were trailing by a point. And I was like, well, how's that happened against the Jets? And it was because they were kicking a field goal to go 2 scores ahead of the Buccaneers, and then the Jets blocked it. Will McDonald blocked it. It was like the Jordan Davis thing. He blocked it, and then he somehow scooped it up and ran like 60, 70 yards and scored a touchdown. Aaron Glenn did this crazy celebration on the sideline, the head coach of the Jets. But then Baker Mayfield, with the last chance to get them back the win, delivered a game-winning drive, and they survived. But you kind of look at that and you think, okay, and now Mike Evans, I don't know if you saw that, Robbie. Mike Evans went out of the game today with a hamstring injury. And so they're going to play the Buccaneers, 2 weeks today? Yeah, 2 weeks today. Now, hamstring, I don't know if he's going to be back for that Seahawks game. And you've already got, they're already quite banged up with their offensive line, which is all over the place. Like, they've lost so many offensive linemen. Emeka Egbuka looks outstanding, but he's also been carrying a bit of an injury. So, and they nearly lost against the Jets. So you kind of look, I don't want to look too far ahead, but you kind of think, wow, if you could beat the Cardinals, if you could beat the Buccaneers, you then got the tough trip to Florida. It always feels like a tough place to go, Jacksonville, for the Seahawks. It's such a long way away. You then host a Texans team who have been massively disappointing so far. And then you've got the Commanders on the road, and then the Cardinals, and then you finally play the Rams in the mid-November. So it could end up, there is a pathway there to kind of have the start of the season that I think many of us were hoping and expecting for. It's just a shame they couldn't have found a way to win in week 1, just to have that 3-0. And for that, I think if they'd have won that first game and then that had happened today and they were 3-0, you'd have been waking up on Monday to the power rankings having Seattle probably too high. Like, they're this good and everything like that. Whereas there's going to be a degree of skepticism there still. But maybe if they beat the Cardinals on Thursday, that will sort of be the thing that affirms everything. Hunter says, we have not heard Bradford's name much, which is very true, Robbie. I think that's a good thing. The fact that it's a little bit like, one thing we always say when I'm covering the soccer is, if you don't notice the referee, that's a good game of football. Like, if the referee doesn't have to do anything or doesn't make himself noticed, then that's always a positive. I always feel that way about offensive linemen. If you never have to talk about an offensive lineman, or a cornerback for that matter, it means that they're either just doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, or they're excelling, and you just haven't studied it closely enough. And from Bradford's point of view, I think Sundell had a penalty on a hold, which pulled back a good run from Ken Walker, but I thought that was ticky-tacky, that flag. Overall, the Lions seemed to have a good game today. I saw Charles Cross had a couple of good blocks. Gray Zabel was blocking downfield when he got that penalty against Brissy, shoved him after the whistle, and they got the flag very early on. Abe Lucas seemed to play well today. I was keeping half an eye on him. So the line seems to be coming together. And again, it may not be the 2014 Cowboys, Robbie, but it's already looking like a massive improvement from last year, which is what we all wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the exact same thing. It's kind of like what I said last week about Tariq Woolen. I was like, did he get benched, or did we just not hear from him? He played that good, and he played that good. So that's great. And I think that's the same thing with Bradford. If you're not talking about him, great. And same thing with Sundell. Like, you don't hear his name much either, and that's awesome. And it seems like the center position is finally like lockdown, I would say, for now, which is great.
It is for now. I still, it's
a long season. I said that's why I did hesitate and say for now. But it's a long season. But positive.
But he's not doing anything awful, is he? And that's the thing. We have seen a lot of awful players or players that play awful football. whether that's the coaching or the play calling or whatever. And you kind of watch this line and you don't watch it through your hands. Like there were a few plays where Sam Darnold was stood in the pocket for ages today, like just sort of stood looking and able to go through his progressions. And sometimes it worked out and sometimes it didn't. And that just didn't happen before. And I think that to have that is obviously a massive improvement this year. And if that's the main thing that you gain from this is that you feel very good about the offensive line. I did promise a bit of draft talk at the end. The only problem with that, though, Robbie, is that as the more I study this draft, the more I think, well, it's kind of set up for another offensive line pick early on because that's where all the good players seem to be. And I don't know if you could justify it if this group of 5 continue to play the way they are. I don't think you could afford to take another high offensive lineman if you want to keep the group together. So, but that's a good problem to have. Like if that's the biggest worry about the offensive line, then they're doing something right. Glenn, thank you, Glenn, for your super chat. It says it's starting to come together. Agree with that. Completely agree with that. Thank you for that one. And Sam says we handled Kamara historically well this game. With Connor likely out, does that affect our need to push our defensive starters to play on Thursday? I don't know. I don't know if there's necessarily going to have to be a push, Robbie. I think, and thank you for that, Sam. And it was good to see Kamara not hammer the Seahawks for the first time in his career when he's played us. I think they were resting players on purpose. I think they had a feeling that. Did you see Julian Love? What play was it where Julian Love was sprinting down the sideline in the first half, like celebrating? Like Devin Witherspoon, in fairness, was not. Like he was laboring somewhat and did not look healthy.
Yeah.
But Julian Love was on a full-on sprint. That, to me, felt like he's been held on a precaution. He's not actually seriously injured. I mean, you don't run like that if you're injured, do you? So I'd expect Love to play on Thursday at least.
I would even expect Witherspoon to give it a go, maybe just to see. I saw him dancing around on the sidelines. I think he's gonna be okay. I mean, maybe not, but I think they definitely held them out on purpose for the Thursday night game.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, Robbie. I kind of have I don't know what you feel. I don't really like the Thursday night games because I think you can have too much of a good thing, and the football on a Thursday thing. It's great when it happens. Like to be at work on Thursday, thinking, "Oh, the Seahawks are playing tonight." It's very exciting. But as soon as it's finished, you do sort of start to think, "Well, I wish they were playing on Sunday instead. I've got nothing to look forward to." Now I'm doing the national radio on Sunday, so it's probably worked out for the best that the Seahawks are playing on the Thursday this week, so I won't miss the Seahawks game if that wasn't the one we were covering. But it is good to it is good, I think, on a Sunday to have something to look forward to. But this time is fine. Before I do sort of touch on a little bit of the draft stuff, do you feel confident about? I personally feel confident about this game on Thursday. How do you feel about it? I think the fact that Connor's out, the fact they've played a tough game today, the fact that the Seahawks had basically a tune-up for that game, I think it's all working in Seattle's favor.
Sorry, I just totally lost everything. Did you hear anything I said?
I didn't hear anything that you said, no. I don't know if it's my connection or yours.
No, that might have been mine. Everything was just kind of went black, and then I was talking. But anyway, yeah, someone said, "Did we lose Robbie?" Okay, so there we go. I'm back now. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. I said I was confident going to the 49ers game, and that didn't go very well. So I'm tempering my expectations, but I do have a little bit of confidence in just in the team's direction now. I was really frustrated after the first game. I was really worried about the Clint Kubiak, if that's how he was going to call games. He seemed to like figure that out and dial it in. And, as someone stated out, it feels like the direction of the team, and we're starting to figure out what we're doing. And I'm feeling more confident in just the team as a whole. I don't know how well they'll play against Arizona, just because it is a divisional game. It's Thursday night. You just never know, but I am confident that we'll be ready for it.
And then sort of two things to finish. One is the draft. I just want to give a few thoughts on the draft. I'm going to say that I don't think this is looking like a very good draft class at all, Robbie. Like it's really hard to find players who I think you could go, that's a potential first round prospect there. And there are players who the who are being taught up. Like if you Google 2025 NFL mock draft right now, you would find TJ Parker and Peter Woods from Clemson, the 2 defensive linemen, in pretty much every top 10 mock draft. I have studied there. I watched the game yesterday when I got back from Portsmouth. I did a 4-hour drive for work, and then I got home and immediately stuck that game on playback. And I thought they were poor in that game when I watched it on playback. And then I watched the defensive snaps today, and I thought they were worse than when I watched it yesterday. Like, they are not playing like first-round picks. So I'm struggling to generate excitement about this class. All of my favorite players do seem to be on the offensive line, which, funnily enough, might not be Seattle's biggest need area. So if you just to take that opinion on face value, do you feel any more inclined to think about, do you use a pick, maybe even a high pick, not necessarily a first rounder, but maybe a second, maybe a third, to go and try and improve this team in whatever area you think that is, whether that's linebacker, pass rusher, weapon, whatever you think? Do you do any of that stuff given that this might not be a draft class full of talent, or do they have to stay disciplined? Do they need to protect those picks? Do they need to keep drafting young players and adding them in, even if it's a down year? Do they have to keep adding young talent? Because it seems to be standing them in good stead. But I do just wonder, Robbie, whether when it actually gets to like the big games like we saw in week 1, have they got enough to win, to beat the Rams in a playoff, the Eagles, the Packers, the Niners? Have they got enough?
I think if you have the opportunity to draft a good lineman, you take it. Whether it's offense or defensive line, you just take that opportunity regardless of what it's like. I mean, I think, if you have the opportunity to take an inside guard or a center, you're going to take the opportunity. I don't think there's any reason why you don't, especially if they can help improve the roster and they could be better than what you have now. And having a player who has played on the offensive line and is going to be the backup, but somebody who's just better, then fine. But they'll be ready to come in and still be serviceable if you need them should an injury come into play. Plus, if you need to play 6 linemen or whatever the case might be, I think you roll with the best player available and just go that route.
So I don't know what my opinion is on that. I need to think about it more, because I don't like giving away picks, and it's nothing to do with because I write a draft blog. I want the Seahawks. If the Seahawks could go and acquire a player tomorrow, which would elevate them to the next level, I would do it in a heartbeat, as long as it wasn't a preposterous a compensation to make that kind of trade. And I don't really have a name out there. I think after week 1, I was thinking they might have to go and get another receiver here. But now, Torrey Horton's played well in 2 games since then. Cooper Kupp's been more involved. They get the tight ends involved a bit more. I'm not sure they desperately need to go and do that anymore. But then I look at this draft class. So the players. So here's what I kind of think. I won't drone on too much about this, but at the minute, I think you can legitimately say that Caleb Downs, the safety at Ohio State, is a first-round prospect, but he's not an amazing. He's not expected to be an amazing tester. So you kind of wonder how early is he going to go if he doesn't do any testing and stuff like that. I think Kedrick Folk has shown enough flashes to think he could be a high first-round pick, and I think Danny Dennis Sutton at Penn State has done that. Ruben Bain Jr. is playing very well, the defensive end at Miami, but he's a bigger defensive end, and he's creating a lot of pressures, but he's kind of doing it with brute strength rather than quick twitch. So you do wonder a little bit at the next level, is he going to be able to win that way? And that's really it. Like, I do not think TJ Parker's playing well enough to go in the first round at the moment. I don't think Peter Woods is. I don't sort of see any others on the defensive line who at the minute are looking like first round prospects. So it's extremely light there. And then at receiver, I think it's thin. Chris Brazzell at Tennessee has started well, but it's hard to sort of know where he fits into the equation. Jordan Tyson's playing well at receiver. Evan Stewart is got a bad injury, so he's not playing for Oregon at the minute. At quarterback, I'll talk a bit about them separately, but for me, it's the strength of this draft is my favorite player in the draft, Spencer Fano, the right tackle at Utah. But then the next group that I really like are Vega Ione, who's the left guard at Penn State. I think is a fantastic talent. He reminds me of who's that? Mike Yapati. He reminds me of like a him, but maybe a bit more agile, Robbie. And as I was watching him, I was thinking, oh, you know, his zone blocking grade's pretty good, actually, by the way, even though he's a bigger guy, big athletic guy. It's like 79, 80 or something like that. So I really like him. You've also got Jennings Dunker, Iowa. Yeah, I think Bo Stevens continues to play well, the left guard at Iowa. I really like. I thought Logan Jones. They beat Rutgers at the weekend. Iowa. Logan Jones had his best game of the 3 he's played so far, or 4 he's played so far in that game, and was tremendous. And I think he could be a top center or a guard. And they're the players that I'm most excited about. And it's hard. Like I've got so many players that I've already had to chuck into sort of the round 3 and beyond mix who are getting first round love on the internet, and I just don't see it. And then at quarterback, I think it's, if you want sort of excitement with the draft, Robbie, you have to have quarterbacks to talk about, don't you? And it's just, I think John Mateer is going to be the guy that people attach themselves to. John Mateer is a very exciting player to watch. I think the league's going to love his personality. I think he's the one who, throughout this process, is going to rise, particularly if Oklahoma keep winning. But apart from that, there's really only Garrett Nussmeier, who I think has been, people may well wonder about Fernando Mendoza. I'm going to watch his tape after we finish this from the weekend. I just think that it's so well schemed, Indiana's offense. It's hard to read. But the point is this might be, Robbie, I hate to say this, and I always kind of say this sometimes now, and then by the time I get to January, there's a whole bunch of players I really like. This might be one of the weaker drafts that I've done. I think that's safe to say. There's just not that top end talent. That'll be different next year when the likes of Jeremiah Smith come out. But at the minute, it's very, very, very hard to find first round prospects. Very hard. And I do just wonder how the league will approach that. If they feel that way as well. The Packers have already been very aggressive. Are some of these contenders going to be very aggressive before the trade deadline? Are we going to see aggression in when free agency opens next year as teams kind of move around for veterans? There are going to be some teams who look to rebuild. The Dolphins probably, maybe one or two others. The Cowboys might be another one who kind of try and mix things up a little bit here. There are others. I think it's going to be fascinating. The veteran market might be the most interesting thing over the next sort of 9 months, Robbie.
Yeah, as you were talking, that's what the first thing I thought about. Kind of was just like, what was free agency going to look like and trades before the draft? Because that always happens, and it'll make it interesting to see. I mean, if someone really likes, a quarterback, are they going to trade up quite a bit for it, or are they going to sit back? Or best player available? What are you going to do there? And it's still a long football season. I saw something today that I thought was really dumb. ESPN posted, or SportsCenter posted on Instagram that they had Arch Manning was standing over the guy from Sam Houston, and they were like, tough. And I was like, it's Sam Houston. Are you kidding me? Like, what a terrible football team. And like, now all of a sudden he's back. And like, I don't know. I feel bad for the kid because he's getting so much hype. And, it's gotta be hard to bear the Manning name and play quarterback. But just, I don't know. It's different when you know that he's getting all this love and he's just not playing all that well. I don't know. It's different.
I don't know what's happened to ESPN. It's hard to absorb anything that they do. It's all either like shouty, hypey nonsense, or it's stuff like that feels like it's been put together by people who don't really watch sport. And it's hard to even stuff like one of the things I used to love at this time of the year was the First Draft podcast with Todd McShay and Mel Kiper, when they kind of just did it themselves. They didn't have a host. And was my day job. I'd sort of drive around, Robbie, and have to go on long trips. Like I had to do a big long trip this weekend, and I've got another one next weekend. And I'd just throw that on as I was driving to wherever I was going, and it would kill an hour. And it was great because Todd McShay and Mel Kiper would argue about things, they'd bicker like an old couple, and it was entertaining. And now when you switch it on, like Field Yates just constantly gives his opinion on draft process. Like Phil, it's like giving Ian Rappaport a job as a draft pundit. Like there's just Field Yates has gone from being a reporter to a draft expert, mainly by default because he co-hosted the show with McShay and Kiper, and they've kind of just plonked him into that role now. And Mel Kiper sat there. It's kind of like a bit part. It's almost like the Field Yates show featuring Mel Kiper, and it's very, very difficult to listen to compared to what it used to be. And it's a shame. It's a shame that we don't have that. We don't have stuff like that anymore. And I think ESPN should be thoroughly ashamed of themselves. Oh, I'm just joking, but not really. Anyway, back to just to wrap things up here. Big thank you to everyone who has sent super chats in, and it was very, very enjoyable. We've had one final super chat, Robbie, from the main man, Mark D, who has sent a $4.99 super chat in, and he says, even though I donated $4.99, I will always be $480, Mark. Go Seahawks, go Mariners. The legend. Yeah, we will still be talking of the legend of Mark D, or $480 Mark, in years to come. Hopefully, the Seahawks are lofting a Lombardi Trophy on one of these streams, Robbie. Mark will be joining us in the chat, and we'll be celebrating with him, because that was, I mean, unintentionally. I feel bad still that it happened, but it was an unintentionally hilarious moment from about a year ago. That was the Giants game, wasn't it?
It was great. It was phenomenal.
And given it's good that he's got in touch, because I think it was the Giants game, and that was what had everybody worried for this one. It was like, can you remember what happened in the Giants game? And the number of times I saw that, like this week, with people saying, don't underestimate the Saints, because look at the Giants game last year, and thankfully they didn't allow that to happen. And this is, look, please let this be the norm now. It doesn't have to be 44-13 or whatever it was today, but please, when you are playing bad teams, can we not do the old Pete Carroll thing of letting them hang around or letting them win in Seattle? Like, let's just blow them out. Like, that's what the good teams do. They see the Saints and they take them to the cleaners, and that's what the Seahawks did today. So really positive. Hopefully more of that to come at home. They have improved their record to 2-7 in the last 9 now at home. So hopefully we can stop talking about that if they get a few more wins at home. But they've got some tougher tests to come in that regard. And the next home game is the Buccaneers. So that will be an interesting game. Anyway, big thank you to everybody for your super chats. Somebody said they couldn't find the hype button, but it should be there. So see if you can find it. And if you can find the hype button, I think you have to scroll across to find it. But if you can find that, click the hype button, like the video, leave a comment, seahawksdraftblog.com for more analysis. Just to keep you posted, I think tomorrow with Jeff, we'll do a stream. Tuesday, I'm running through the schedule now. Tuesday, Bump and Stacey on Seattle Sports at noon. Either watch that, you can listen to that live, or I will post a video on the seahawksdraftblog.com. 5 p.m. Seattle time. Seahawks Collective latest podcast will be on Tuesday. Wednesday with Puck Sports. I'll post that on Seahawks Draft Blog as well. So make sure you check that out too. I think that's everything. And I don't know, Robbie, I don't know whether I will certainly be doing something on Thursday. I don't know what your availability is, or Adam's, but there definitely will be a stream immediately after the Arizona game in some form. So until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go Mariners. Good luck to the Seattle Mariners in Houston. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Until next time. Bye for now.